I'm full time in the fight industry. I started in all this fun when I was 22 as a boxer doing rules and regulatory. So those are my two big passions in the industry: the dating side, the rules and reg side. So we're going to go over refs and judges. Sometimes, like at the ABC, I break these courses down, but then also I just did this for Japan, as we've now done two in cooperation with Ryzen for the Japanese Mixed Martial Arts Committee, who's the regulatory body in Japan for bare knuckle and MMA. So some of these videos just pertain to reffing, some pertain to judging, and a lot of them pertain to both. For those of you who've taken my course before, I really fall back on what I've learned taking the great John McCarthy's courses. It's interactive. I'm not going to sit here and lecture to you guys. We're going to talk. I'm going to ask questions. I know some of you here, but everybody ask a question, literally no dumb questions. You don't have to disagree with everything I say. I'm plenty secure to be challenged on things, and I like that uh, because it makes me think in a different direction. So we have a lot of videos. We're going to go straight through it. I know you have an advanced group here, Matt. So sometimes on skill levels, we have to go a little slower on things. The early videos, I think we're probably going to whip through. With that being said, still ask questions or give comments, and then we start to go up the degree of difficulty. First thing, Matt, if you'll do the initial slide. Just want everybody to look at bare knuckle fighting rules. So no 3 knockdown rule, no standing 8 count. If you guys like the standing 8 count, you'll see why we don't have it in bare knuckle. It was experimented with once in 2019, and it was a failed experiment. That was against my will, by the way. Fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round. Punches are the only strikes permitted, and with that, there are no spinning back fists, no hammer fists, no takedowns or sweeps. You see no spinning strikes. Punching in the active clinch is allowed. Active clinch are two big words. We're going to go deep into that with some video review. No submissions of any kind. Every round begins with the fighters coming up to scratch. That's standing 3 feet apart. So, again, I was on the Kansas Athletic Commission for 8 years. I'm still heavily involved with the Kansas Commission. I'm a native Kansan. It's where I started refereeing numerous years ago. So we had you guys in Georgia are very similar to us in Kansas. You have a lot of hybrid shows. You have a lot of smaller shows. We had two bare knuckle fights in June in Lawrence, Kansas. It was an outdoor parking lot show. It was a great Kansas hybrid show. Pro and Am, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and two bare knuckle. A bunch of AMI MMAs. Oh, we have someone from Wichita. Look at you. There we go. Yeah, I love Wichita. So on that, for the scratch line, myself and the referee Nick Behrens, before the bare knuckle fights, we got tape from the cut man and we put it on the canvas. If you're doing a hybrid show and you're not comfortable with the tape being down for the scratch lines, take it off when you go back to MMA. But you need to build the scratch lines. 3 feet, a lot of people, including my kids, have an app on their phone. If not, just walk off 3 feet. If it's an inch or two off, no one's going to lose any sleep over that. The point is, we need the scratch lines. When BKFC comes, the scratch lines are built into our canvas. As you get these smaller shows, especially these hybrid shows, you're not going to have the scratch lines down. So all you need are two pieces of tape that sets where the fighters start, and that's the start of every round. That's not the start of the clinch or the separate, or when you break the clinch, the separation. That's the start of every round. If some of you haven't watched bare knuckle, you'll get a visual understanding of the scratch lines. But Matt, whether that falls to you or the referee or your inspectors or whomever, but just make sure that you have the scratch lines up so it's not approximated, that you put the two lines up the best you can do 3 feet apart and start the round. Any questions on the rules? All right, we'll keep rolling. Next slide, please. We'll look at the scoring criteria. Big thanks to Mike Mazzulli, president of the ABC, Tim Shipman, who's the head of the Florida Athletic Commission. 3 years ago, Mike Mazzulli created the first ever bare knuckle rules and regs committee. I came over from MMA, where I chaired for 7 years to create this. Scoring criteria comes right out of this. As most of you know on this call, coming from MMA, it's very similar to MMA. You know, in MMA, that it's criteria where you look at the first and then the second and then the third and then the fourth. It's not all jumbled together. It's the same thing with MMA, the difference being that we have three. We'll go over that. Effective aggressiveness. In MMA, you'd be looking at effective striking / effective grappling. There's no effective grappling, obviously, effective aggressiveness. Who's landing the cleaner, more effective punches? We're not counting punches, of course. If blue corner throws 5 soft jabs to the body and red corner lands a crushing overhand right, it might be 5-1 on the punch count, but guess what? Red corner's winning because he landed the more, or she landed the more effective punch. Number two, if you feel that that's even, is going to be controlling of the fighting area. Basically, or I beg your pardon. Number one is effective striking, right? Number two is effective aggressiveness. We understand that. Then number three is controlling of the fighting area. That would be called cage control in MMA or ring generalship in boxing. So really what you're looking at, if it's as simple as this, who is landing the cleaner, more effective strikes, legal punches to legal targets? The aggressiveness usually flows in there, but if you feel that the effective striking right is even, you look at aggressiveness, who's pushing forward, who's doing more, who's really trying to affect the fight, trying to finish. And then the third, which is probably going to be 1 or 2% of the time, is going to be controlling of the fighting area. Again, cage control, ring generalship in another sport. Just like you see in MMA, there is no defense as a scoring criteria. As John McCarthy says, congratulations, you defended, you get to continue to fight. Boxing still has it. Tim Cheatham, who's one of the best boxing judges in the world out in Nevada, someone I lean on heavily for a lot of things, told me that he uses defense less than 1% of the time, and probably like 0.01% of the time. It's still there in boxing. Boxing obviously falls back on history. It's not there. So if you think, wow, that was a close round, but blue corner was super defensive, yeah, that means they weren't playing offense, which means that they weren't being effectively aggressive and they weren't being really effective with their strikes or controlling the fighting area. Defense basically just keeps you in the fight. It can look flashy, good head movement, you're moving, you're elusive, but you have to be doing something offense. Just like MMA, this is offensive based. So we're going to talk about all the different rounds. What you're going to see in MMA, or sorry, what you're going to see in bare knuckle. And I know most of you come from MMA as opposed to boxing. We have some boxing people here too. This is a sport open to everybody. It doesn't matter your background. This is such a new sport based on an old sport. The first bare knuckle rules came in 1743, but this sport was relaunched in 2018. The scoring criteria was developed last year. So, and there's been an evolution since 2018. You're going to see on the 10-9, 10-8, you're going to see a lot of knockdowns. You're going to see multiple knockdown rounds. As I tell boxing people, there's a good chance you'll see more knockdowns in one bare knuckle round on the card than you might see in an entire pro boxing card. It's not an exaggeration. So we're going to open, if you go to our first video, Matt, which is number 4. Hopefully this doesn't freeze up. I've never used WebEx before. We're just going to walk through, and then we'll just get a quick polling of judges' scorecards. This is a pretty straightforward round. This is Bryce Henry in the blue trunks, Robbie Peralta, UFC veteran, in the black trunks. See the fighters are up to scratch? There you go, round number 1. All right. Anybody want to give me a score? Blue trunks is that man, Bryce Henry. The black trunks is Robbie Peralta.
I have it Bryce and
Absolutely. So again, we've got an advanced group here, so we're not going to spend a lot of time. This is about as clear cut at 10-9 as you're going to see. Bryce Henry's defense was awesome, but again, that's not a scoring criteria. But what else was awesome? Well, he was landing the cleaner, more effective strikes, right? Absolutely. You wouldn't have to move down the chart, but if you wanted to, even though that's decided right there, effective aggression, absolutely. And then you saw his ring generalship, his controlling of the fighting area. That is a clean cut, straightforward 10-9. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody see that any differently for Peralta? Cool. Okay, we'll go to the next video, please. This is Taylor Starling. She's in the black and yellow, and this is a French-Canadian girl from Quebec named Jade Masson Wong. She's in the black and red. So Taylor Starling is in the black and yellow. Jade Masson Wong is in the black and red. All right, whenever you're ready, Matt. Thank you. All right, Matt, thank you. Who has a score for me?
10-8 red.
Anybody else?
I got a question. Before the
Yes.
knockdown, I mean, do you think that Red was winning that round before the knockdown?
Great. And I was going to bring that up. It's a very even round. But here's the thing with this, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of history as we've evolved. It's an absolute 10-8 round across the board. 100% of the time, that's a 10-8 round. Whether you think that Jade, the girl who recorded the knockdown, was winning, or Taylor, the girl in the black and yellow who was on the bad end of the knockdown, was winning, that's negated by the knockdown. For those of you who've judged boxing, it's the exact same thing. That is a 10-8 round. We're going to show something where we talk about could there be dominance. We're really following boxing too. 6-8 years ago, under the unified rules of boxing, Dwayne Ford was the big proponent that, well, you could be on the bad end of the knockdown, but if you were dominating the round, you still lose the round, but it's 10-9. We're over 1,000 fights in BKFC. I've yet to see that because knockdowns occur so much. So as a judge, make it easy on yourself here. I've watched this round a lot. I think Jade, the girl in the black and red, was probably winning, but it doesn't matter. because that is a 10-8 round. Again, even if you thought that Taylor, the girl in the
No,
black
I
and yellow,
wasn't,
was
I wasn't
winning,
asking for that reason. I just want, just for
right?
the scoring, the way that round was going, I had red ahead before the knockdown, without a doubt. When a knockdown occurs, it's going to be the 10-8, whoever scores the
Yep,
knockdown. I agree there.
yep,
Just for
yep.
educational purposes, before the knockdown, I thought red was winning the round, and not by a lot, but was winning the round.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think she was landing a little harder on the inside. It's a really even round. I think that's one of those someone could make an argument for Taylor having won that black and yellow. I don't know that I would agree, but it's a valid argument. So yeah, that's a great point. I like this round because there's no real dominance in either direction before the knockdown. So again, you guys are a higher level group. Some groups I have to spend a little more time on that. You guys understand it's a 10-8. If anybody doesn't understand it's a 10-8, cool. I'll give you guys a little bit of a history on this. So early on, and I mean 2018, 2019, knockdowns were coming so frequently, far more frequently than we thought. We looked at, wow, if should you be rewarded that heavily for a knockdown in a close round? And the answer we all came up with is yes. Because what's the intention of this sport? You're trying to finish your opponent. So yes, that's a 10-8 round. In 2018, 2019, we might have taught that as a 10-9 round, but that's 100% every single time a 10-8 round. But Edward, great question. I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, I would, if it ends before the knockdown, I'm giving it very, very slightly to Jade, the girl in the
Right.
black and red. Let's see if both had a knockdown. We're coming to that, Moses Lee. We are coming to that. So great question.
Can
Thank you.
I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, please, Bright.
I saw just something on the screen, and I know a lot of promotions are going to live scoring. You guys don't do live scoring, do you?
It's commission. It's up to the commission. It has nothing to do with BKFC.
Okay.
We just did a show in Kansas. They had it. I can tell you that Adam Rohrbach, who is my executive director, and myself were the two people who created real time live scoring in Kansas in 2017. But promotionally, if it's offered to BKFC, we will use it, but we never ask a commission to do it. It's
Okay.
so Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, New Mexico, and Colorado have offered real time scoring, and we've taken it. Matt, if you say it's offered, we'll take it. But again, that's absolutely a commission issue that we respect.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right. Any other questions on that? Good discussion, guys. Excellent. All right.
So
Yeah.
do the knockdowns compound like in boxing? So if there were two knockdowns, would that be a 10-7 automatically, or is that going to be discretionary?
It is coming. It is definitely coming. So we will get to that, Blake. I've got a lot of videos roll out. So I hate to sandbag on you, but we'll get to that on the video. But here they come. All right. And to the point of the question, next video, please, Matt. The degree of difficulty, those are easy. The degree and Trey, hold on 1 second. Do knockdowns add up? Yeah, we're gonna get all of those. Yeah, no problem. Never mind. No big deal. All right. So next round. So this is Nate Morrow, who's in the black trunks, just as Josh Krejci, who is in the gray trunks. Degree of difficulty starts to get higher on the judging. Here we go. Again, Nate Morrow, black trunks, Josh Krejci, gray trunks. All right, Matt, thank you. All right, guys, first question. How many knockdowns did we have in that round?
2.
Yep. I've had groups where they see 3. I tell referees, that's Tyrone Roberts who comes out of boxing. He did a really good job. Be very demonstrative with your calls, almost theatrical. First ref course I ever took was the late great Mills Lane. Is like you're selling that call to the person who bought the seat in section 308 row ZZ. Be demonstrative on your calls. So right, 2 knockdowns, because on that video it's been more than one person said, "Oh, I thought there were 3 knockdowns." So what's the score of that round?
10-7.
10-7.
Does anybody have anything different?
10-7.
Yep,
Nothing different.
absolutely. Yep. Matt Woodruff, you weren't lying. This is a high level group. Absolutely. They were very, very basic bare knuckle knockdowns. You saw that Josh Krejci was up literally at 1, but they're still knockdowns. So what you're going to hear me say as we look at more videos, as a judge, all knockdowns are treated equal. As a referee, they are not. We'll get into that, but really think about that. As a ref, as a judge, all knockdowns are created equal. You go back to the last video. Jad turned over that right hand and crushed Taylor. When I was commentating that fight, I didn't think Taylor was getting up. These are 2 not great knockdowns. They all count the same. All knockdowns are created equal. 10-7 across the board. Note for referees, Tyrone Roberts was really good on indicating the slip. Right back to it. Easy. All right, any discussion on that? All right, good group. All right, degree of difficulty keeps getting higher. Next video, please. This is Dave Mundell in the blue trunks, and Mike Richman is in the leopard skin, sort of the cheetah print, so the black and white, and Mundell's in the blue. We're going to have some fun on this round, guys. Again, Mundell in the blue, Richman in the black and white. All right, degree of difficulty is definitely higher. What do we have? Again, Mundell's in the blue, and that's Mike Richman on the screen you're looking at there. Who's got a score for me?
10-8 Mundell.
10-8 Mundell.
Yep, 10-8 blue.
Anybody see a different score? Perfect. Yep, that's exactly right. So here's the way I like to think about it. The 2 knockdowns cancel each other out. In essence, you're back when Mundell comes back and knocks down Richman. Richman knocks down Mundell first, right? Mundell then knocks down Richmond. The way I think about it, I'm basically back to 10-10 in my brain. I know when I took, I've taken Dwayne Ford's course a lot. Noel, I'm sure you've taken that. I don't know other boxing people on here have taken Dwayne's course, but one thing he said was always know the score of the round in your head. Don't have that moment where the round ends, you think, oh, geez, who won? Have that running total. And I really, really drilled in. I took that course 25 years ago, maybe longer, and that really stuck with me. So the way I think about this, we're back to 10-10. Now, Richmond again gets dropped at the end of the round. 10-10. Where do we go? 10-8. Perfect. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I
Now,
noticed
if you
that
didn't,
blue
go
corner
ahead.
was collar tying, holding around the neck, and then punching. Is that legal in bare knuckle?
It is. We're going to show. Yep, that's called the active clinch, Edward. We're gonna show videos on that. We're gonna get deep into the active clinch. So absolutely, and we'll talk about what is and isn't legal on that. But yep, that's absolutely legal. Someone else was going to go. Someone else had a question.
I think I was just talking out loud. If that second knockdown wouldn't have happened, it still would have been back to 10-10. So now you just score it from Mundell 10-9, right?
If you think Mundell won, and we do have a one knockdown apiece video coming up, Brett, but absolutely.
Okay.
You then would have to determine who you felt won the round because the knockdowns cancel each other out. We go back to sorry.
No, I was just making sure y'all had that same kind of rule set as well.
Absolutely. And again, so Sal D'Amato, who I think is not just one of the best MMA judges, now he's one of the best MMA judges ever. He took this course when I did it for California. And he said, well, would you look at the different types of knockdowns? And the answer is no. All knockdowns are created equal. The only way you would do that would be if literally both fighters landed just one punch, and you would then judge it on the impact of the knockdown. But all knockdowns are created equal in that. So we do have a one knockdown apiece round coming up. But again, 10-8, right? You reset, simple math, and I'm terrible at math. You reset your brain, one knockdown apiece. We're back to essentially the start of the round, the 10-10 round. There's the knockdown, 10-8 Mundell. Cool. All right, Matt, next video, please. Okay, this is Ruslan Tokhtarov. This is, sorry, Matt, go back for a second. I'm sorry. So Dimitrov is the fighter in the blue hand wraps and wearing the black and red. He's on the right, and then Tokhtarov is the opposite side. So he's in the solid black trunks. I'm sorry, Rerack. Go ahead, please. Thank you. So Dimitrov blue gloves, Tokhtarov red gloves. Or hand wraps more accurately. All right, thank you, Matt. All right, so there's our one knockdown apiece round. So there's a few things to unpack on this. So first of all, who wants to be brave and has a score?
Blue
Yeah, I
rep,
got 10-9
blue
blue.
rep.
Yeah, 10-9 blue also.
Trey, you have 10-8 red. Okay. Does anybody have a score other than 10-9? So here's what I love about this round is that there's an argument to be made for blue, and there's an argument to be made for red. Where there is no argument is that the score of this round is 10-9. Whether you have blue or red, Dimitrov or Tokhtarov, that's both are justified, but it has to be a 10-9. So very simply, we talk about resetting. One knockdown apiece, it's a 10-10 round. Now, to go back to all knockdowns are created equal, I don't care who had the better knockdown. It has no bearing on this round whatsoever. I don't care who has the cleaner knockdown, the harder knockdown, the prettier knockdown. I don't care who stays longer on the canvas on the knockdown. That doesn't matter. All knockdowns are created equal. We're back to 10-10. Through the whole volume or through the whole body of the round, who do you feel did more looking on the criteria, right? Who had the more effective striking, then who had the more effective aggression, and if you had to go to it, who had the better ring generalship, the controlling of the fighting area. So an argument can be made for 10-9, an argument can be made for 10-8. That's a super close round as long as you know that it's 10-9. So at this point, I want to talk about refereeing a little bit again, because this is a course for both. You guys have seen some knockdowns now. You see the pattern that people get up at 1 and 2 all the time. We have a mandatory 8 count, and even fighters get this mixed up. Even referees get this mixed up. There's a standing 8 count and there's a mandatory 8 count. They're two very, very different things. A lot of you know this, and forgive me for saying this if you know this, and others, I think it definitely is worth an explanation. A mandatory 8 count means when a fighter is knocked down, even if they're up at 1, they have to take an 8-second count from the referee. You know, if you've seen those old black and white films of Jack Dempsey fighting, he would clock someone, he would hover over them, they would stand up, and then he would punch them and knock them down again. That really got it phased out of boxing in the 1960s. You don't see it in boxing. They have the mandatory 8. A standing 8 is what they had in professional boxing when I started refereeing when I was in the late 1990s when I was a kid. If you felt that someone was taking high volume, they were getting overwhelmed, but they weren't going down, as a referee, you could jump in, start your count, and treat that as a knockdown. They don't have that in professional boxing anymore. That's called a standing
Matt,
8 count.
Sean, in Michigan, they still do.
Do they really? Interesting. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, in Michigan, they still do. They try not to use it, but they still do it.
That's fascinating. Well, the ABC obviously phased it out. The WBO, IBF, WBA, WBC all phased that out. That's really interesting. So, you know, in Michigan is a state, no disrespect, but they don't. I've been going to the ABC for 9 years now. I've never seen them. So, yeah, that's a good side point, which is always check with your commission, because even if it's not in the unified rules, they might have that. But all right, so you definitely understand then what a standing 8 is. There's no standing 8 count in bare knuckle. Maybe if we ever go to Michigan, they might try to put it in, but under the unified rules, there's no standing 8. Every knockdown, though, referees, you have to count to 8. There's going to be pressure on you as referees because fighters are up at 1 and 2 all the time. And they're like, come on, man, I want to go. And the crowd's going, let him go. You have to count to 8. You absolutely have to count to 8. And then you can let them go. We're going to look at some knockdowns a little later on, but that's very important. Another thing you're seeing.
Sean, real quick.
Yeah, please.
I don't want to.
No, please.
I know it's bare knuckles, but I've seen most of the fights I've watched. Some fighters had their gauze or their hand wraps over their knuckles. And these fights,
they don't. No, they don't. I think it's not. They have to be 1 inch below the knuckle.
Okay.
Yeah. And earlier I was saying blue gloves, red gloves. That's me talking like an MMA person. I should be saying wraps more correctly. No. And I'm glad you brought this up. So under the unified rules, they have to wear red or blue, and that's for the judges. That's so you know who's landing punches. But it cannot be above 1 inch below the knuckle. So in essence, I don't know if can you guys see me on the video? Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
I don't know
Yes.
if you guys can see me in the bottom screen or not, but it's 1 inch below the knuckles. Now, Sam Shoemaker, who fought 3 weeks ago, he just literally likes a wrist wrap. There has to be a wrap on there, and that's to help the judges, blue and red, when the punches go through. Same reason that they started doing blue glove tape and red glove tape in MMA, right? That's for the judges. That was the reason that's created. But no, the wraps have to be 1 inch below the knuckles and down. They cannot be above that 1 inch threshold. So it might look like this because we're seeing it on a smaller computer screen. But yeah, believe me, all of these are 1 inch below the knuckles. And that's something, if there are inspectors on this call or referees, make sure your inspectors know that people don't try to cheat. Most people want less glove or less hand wraps, not more, but just be aware of that too. It's 1 inch. Now, when BKFC comes, because we travel our cut men and we have a back of the house team and an operations team, that won't happen. Is Georgia like Kansas? You're going to get house shows, you're going to get hybrid shows, you're going to get club shows. Not everyone might know the rules or be super ethical or scrupulous. So that falls upon all of you. As the referee, as the inspectors, I always like to say, if you see something, say something. Even as a judge, report that out. So good point on that. Also, as you guys see, knockdowns are coming. Nick Barron's my buddy, you'll see him in some of these videos, and he also judges for bare knuckle. He's in the UFC now, refereeing. He's a judge and a ref in bare knuckle and a ref right now doing a lot of UFCs. Because of the knockdowns, he has taken to on a knockdown, just putting a little star or a dot on his scorecard. Now, I've been through the same MMA training that you guys have. What do they tell you? For the love of God, don't break eye contact. Notes. Don't go any other inspector rules besides, I'll get to that in a second, Greg. Thank you. Don't break eye contact when you take MMA as a judge, right? Don't make notes. Don't write stuff. Because we have the mandatory 8 count, when there's a knockdown, I'm not telling you you should. I'm recommending to you make a little note on your scorecard, because as a commentator, I have lost track of how many knockdowns there are on a round. And then in commercial, I'll have to ask my producer, my broadcast partner, Chris Lytle. It's really obvious here in a controlled environment. When you're on a worldwide broadcast, when there's thousands of people there screaming, the night goes on, you're in your 8th fight of the night, you've seen already 10 knockdowns, they can run together. So again, I'm not saying you have to or you should. I'm saying my recommendation is, when there's a knockdown, just do a little dot or a star, and then it is super easy at the end of the round, because sooner or later, someone's going to lose track of knockdowns. I've done over 1,000 fights on this, and I've probably lost track of knockdowns at least 15 times. It does happen, and it happens in the night. You have that 8 seconds. It's going to take you less than 1 second to make a little note on your scorecard. You have that pause. You're not breaking eye contact, and you're not diminishing anything you're doing with your judging. The question was on inspectors. So the main thing is that wrap is 1 inch below the knuckles on that. Other than that, we're really following what you would do for combative sports, whether that's MMA, boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing. You're following that. I can tell you with BKFC, we respect the commission. So what the commission says goes. There's really nothing additional. I can't speak for other promotions because I don't work for other promotions. But with BKFC, when we come, whatever Matt says and what you want us to do, that's what we're going to do. I would say, outside of the 1 inch below the knuckles, obviously make sure that they have a cup, make sure they have a mouthpiece. Now, Mark Ralia, who's the chief inspector in California, we had our second California event, and Mark was asking me, why don't we make them wear boxing girdles? So here's the answer. They have to wear groin protection, which most wear a cup. 95% of the fighters in BKFC come from MMA. Only about 5% come from boxing. It's probably a little less than 5%, actually, when you factor in the kickboxers too. It's probably about 2.5 or 3%. MMA people have never worn a boxing girdle. They don't own a boxing girdle. They wouldn't know where to find a boxing girdle. It would feel really, really awkward. So all we mandate is that. In over 1,000 BKFC fights, I would tell you there have been under 15 low blows and probably under 10. The reason, again, is MMA. Think about an MMA. Where do the low blows come from in MMA? They come from knees and they come from kicks. You can watch a lot of MMA and not see a low blow punch. I can think of one significant low blow punch that I've seen in bare knuckle. So groin protection, I'm personally against boxing girdles because I don't think they're needed. And I think it's unfair to make someone wear one who's never worn it in their whole life. As long as you have that, and then the mouthpiece protection, that's what you're looking for. The greasing is going to be the same as the boxing greasing. Be aware with all the clinch too, if there you can't have excessive moisture on your body, because even though this is a striking sport, upper body wrestling with the clinch does come into play, as we'll see in other videos. So excellent question on that with the inspectors. Any other questions on this video?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Are they required to wear shoes?
Say again?
Are they required to wear boxing shoes?
So that is a commission issue. I can tell you BKFC, because we want a certain look, we make them wear boxing shoes. You cannot be barefoot. When we did the house show in Kansas with Two Bare Knuckle, as long as they had shoes on, I look at combat sports really practically at a low level. You know, a guy who's making $300 to make him go out and buy really expensive boxing shoes, I don't love that. You have to wear footwear, and it's got to be appropriate footwear. I can tell you in Kansas, you can box and you don't have to wear boxing shoes. I refereed plenty of people boxing in Kansas wearing tennis shoes. That's a commission issue. Bare knuckle, though, will tell the fighters, and they have the right to do this because they're under contract. You have to wear boxing shoes. So here's an example too. Georgia might say you can put a political message on your trunks, and bare knuckle will say, sorry, you're not, you fight for us. So when you get to other shows that aren't BKFC, I think that's really a commission call. As long as they are wearing footwear and athletic footwear of some type, that's fine. If you want to uniform it and make them all wear boxing shoes, that's absolutely up to the commission. What was the other question that just came through? It was a question on double knockdown.
On this round we were just watching,
yeah.
As Matt knows, I would say impossible that anybody but Blue won that round.
Right.
Okay, but that's neither here nor there. But my question to you is, hypothetically, based upon what you were talking about, in terms, let's say there was no knockdown, like I agree 100% with you, 5 soft jabs, 1 big blow.
Yep.
1 big blow wins the round every time. Okay.
Right.
So let's just say in this situation, they both had 1 knockdown, but one was, and I get it, they're equal as far as scoring, but one was vicious and a tremendous punch knockdown. The other one was just, well, he was a little off balance, he went down. To me, that decides the round if it comes down to the decision where there's 1 knockdown each.
So I definitely respect that point of view. What I would tell you, the way we are teaching with the scoring and the criteria is that all knockdowns are created equal. You want to look at the totality of the round. Edward, I would tell you if those were the only 2 punches that landed in the round, then you would look at who landed the harder knockdown. Right. But we want you to judge the totality of the round.
No, I
get it.
Yeah.
Right. Because blue corner could land a vicious knockdown, but otherwise be completely pieced up, outworked, out jab, outstruck, really pieced up.
I agree. I'm saying that if that was, let's just say, a relatively even round, but for each guy getting the knockdown, the blue knockdown was a much more vicious knockdown than the red knockdown.
So if you put that in the 3 criteria, and you found that in the criteria, and you justified that by saying in the criteria of effective striking, effective aggression, absolutely, I agree with that. I would encourage you, don't just use that as the sole criteria.
No, I agree.
But if you can fit that in.
I'm just making a point, if it was an even round in your mind or very, very close, that sells it for me right away. Say, well, Blue won the round. He had a much
and that's fair, and that's fair, because I mean, Edward, you would agree. Then you're probably looking at that as effective striking, right, or effective aggression.
Right.
Yep. No, we agree. Absolutely.
Okay.
Sean, I have one thing. Since we were just talking about equipment, I was gonna wait till later. The hand wraps, I've heard like 2 different things. One from actual BKFC guy. Is there gauze under those? A certain kind of wrap? Like, what is it?
So it's a thin wrap. We travel with our own cut men on that. Typically they're not gauzing. If people know what stacking is from boxing, you're not stacking the wrap. It's a very small wrap. Now, Will, I don't know if you can see me on the screen. It can extend down the wrist, which is why our hand rate fracture in bare knuckle is way lower, significantly lower, like 3-4 times lower than boxing and MMA, which seems counterintuitive. But that's because it goes deep onto the wrist. But it's not as stacked with tape and gauze and everything. It's essentially just the clean wrap where you're securing the hand. What you're trying to do on a bare knuckle wrap, you're trying to secure the wrist so you don't get a wrist roll, and you're trying to secure on the small bones on the hand, which when they break are called a boxer's fracture. If you guys know anybody who works in an emergency room as a nurse or a doctor, they see boxer's fractures all the time from street fights. So it's not a big stacked wrap. When I commentated World Lightweight Championship, they talked about them being bare knuckle, but those are the biggest, pillowiest wraps I've ever seen in my life, and they were over the knuckles. They were basically a gigantic boxing wrap without gloves. Bare knuckle, and as we see these other videos, you'll see this is a lean wrap. There's not stacking. There's not tape and gauze. You're essentially just rolling that. You might put a thin layer of gauze underneath, but we don't want a heavy stacked wrap. The fighters that I've seen want less. If we let them fight completely barefisted, they would. They really don't want much of a wrap. Does that
gotcha.
answer it?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a rule that it has to have a stacked wrap or whatnot. I didn't know.
No, there's not. I mean, the only rule is the 1 inch below the knuckles. But as a commission, I would say you don't want a big pillowy wrap, but no one's really going to do that because they're trying to get force impact.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. Great. Thank you. All right, Matt, next video, please. You guys are a great group. This is really good stuff. Okay, this is one of my all-time favorite fights. This is Alfredo Angulo, former WBO 154 boxing world champion. He's in the black trunks. Jeremiah Riggs is in the white trunks, Bellator veteran. This is from LA. This was our LA debut in April. Love this fight. All right. It's a crazy fight.
Why was there no warning for it looked like hair pulling though?
Right. So we have, as I was saying at the beginning, Nate, we have videos where some things we talk about refs and judges. This is one of those. Let's talk about the hair pulling first.
Pretty blatant.
So that's Mike Beltran. I love Mike. He's a really close friend. I think he's phenomenal. Mike got reamed by Andy Foster in their postmortem. Absolutely reamed. Mike gives a warning. You guys aren't hearing the audio. Mike just said he missed it. That's Mike's, I think, 4th ever bare knuckle fight, not card, but fight. We brought him down to Florida. That was our first time in California. Mike missed it. There was obviously hair pulling in there. Mike missed it. As referees, hair pulling is not legal. It doesn't happen very often. That's kind of and I know Jeremiah. I've known Jeremiah 14 years from Bellator. He is not a cheater. That's a perfect storm of Jeremiah trying to work what's called the single collar tie or half tie plum against a former boxing world champion. Alfredo Angulo's hair, when it's not tied up, goes down to below his waist. It's coming loose. It's a crazy fight. There was obviously hair pulling. It was obviously missed by Mike Beltran. He owns up to it. He missed it. It's what happened. As referees, you can't pull the hair. In Kansas City, on the show we just did in BKFC on Friday night, there was obvious hair pulling, and the referee took 2 points. And the fighter was like, "Oh yeah, sorry," and he was cheating. And I know that fighter, and he admitted afterwards he got tired and he was cheating. He wound up winning by knockout, but the referee warned him. He continued to do it. The referee called time, and he took 2 points. And I thought it was great refereeing on this. Mike, if Mike had it to do over again, I know that he would have called time, issued a warning, and maybe a point deduction.
Let me ask
Nate,
you
go ahead.
Yeah, because that was pure domination to where if it was MMA, you'd be bordering a 10-8 round before the knockdown, right?
That's why I'm showing this video, my friend.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But then there's no way in BKFC you call that a 10-9 if he got up from the knockdown, not getting knocked out.
So again, we're over 1,000 fights. I have never seen what I would call a 10-8 round without a knockdown. However, if you pause this video right before Jeremiah gets dropped, which is about 41 or 42 seconds left, hypothetically, let's say that's the end of the round. I'm telling you, Jeremiah won that round 10-8.
Yeah.
That would be the only 10-8 round I have ever seen in BKFC without a knockdown.
So if
Jeremiah
he got up from that
dominates
knockdown, the round ends, would you be all right with the 10-9 there for?
And that's exactly what I'm teaching. That is the only time that I would now say if Jeremiah got knocked out and he was laughing afterwards, he was exhausted. I mean, that is the quintessential punching yourself out. He was exhausted from punching Angulo 1,000 times in a row. So Jeremiah didn't get knocked out. So yeah, 2 things. If Jeremiah got up, Jeremiah loses the round despite all of that dominance because knockdown is what we're all going for, but that is a 10-9 round. Does everybody understand that? Angulo, if Jeremiah got up, which he didn't, but if Jeremiah Riggs got up, Angulo doesn't win that 10-8, he wins at 10-9 because he was absolutely throttled other than that punch. Transversely, if the round ended before Jeremiah got dropped, even though there's no knockdown, I'm telling you that's a 10-8 round for Jeremiah Riggs. This is literally 1 in 1,100, but it's a great fight to show. I had commentated over 4,000 fights when I got to BKFC, and I continue to see things that I have never seen before. This is a new sport. The fighters are figuring out stuff faster than all of us. You're going to see some crazy things in bare knuckle. You'll see it in BKFC and you'll see it on the house shows. Does anybody disagree or have a counterpoint? And I'm happy for that on my logic on 10-9 if Jeremiah gets up or 10-8 if the round ends. Does everybody see that?
Yeah, I'll make a comment on that. So
Please.
from my understanding in boxing, okay, if the guy gets knocked down, it's automatically 10-8, no matter what happened. And the reason why is, I guess this is what I've been taught or told at least. If it was a street fight and you fall to the ground, you're basically done.
So it's you go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say I was under the impression you can't do 10-9 if one guy knocks the other down.
So Dwayne Ford, Tim Cheatham, 6-8 years ago were really starting to teach, hey, let's not be so quick on a 10-8 round or a 10-8 round. Let's consider the person who scores the knockdown, if there's only one knockdown in the round, definitely wins. But let's not be so quick to give them a 10-8. Let's give them a 10-9. They then, and I don't know why, but they then revised their thinking. So they are now teaching, let's still have a 10-8 on the table, but it's got to be extremely rare. Tim Cheatham has shown me some videos of that, but it's almost like this. It's almost like a 1 in 1,000. So it's not automatic, but it's over 99% of the time. you still
Yeah,
can consider it